vibrations in your vehicle.
No bueno.
No, you don't. You don't want to ignore them. I had a vehicle in my shop. It's been about 2 or 3 weeks ago from now, but I see it almost once a month or once every 2 months. But someone will ignore a vibration, per se, from, in this case, it was from a front drive shaft. There was a high-speed CV joint had gone bad. It had to be vibrating for some amount of time, but they just ignored it, and they ignored it, and they ignored it. And what ended up happening was it ended up being a $3,000 repair because the transfer case exploded or imploded or whatever it does because the thing was vibrating so bad. These cars are designed where we don't feel vibration in the seat as much as you did in the old days, so maybe it didn't seem as bad as they thought it was. But we don't want to ignore vibrations.
And when you say high speed, we're not implying that this thing failed because you were driving at a high speed. A high-speed CV is just the name of the part that failed. But this is a part that is used every time you're moving. That thing is rotating, and like Dave said, it displayed a bit of a symptom.
So as we're sitting here and we're talking about vibrations in your car, maybe you can think of a vibration you've lived with or ignored. The most common vibration that people feel in their vehicle is tire vibration. Tire vibration is a pretty common vibration that you feel. The tires rotate, and if it's a little imperfect, as they all are, if it's out of balance, you're going to feel it. Now, there's tire separation, which is more of a wobble at slow speeds, right. But a high-speed tire vibration, it may be 55 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour. One thing that's, I think, indicative of a tire vibration is usually it's in a real small window of speed. 61, 62 miles an hour. By 64 miles an hour, it's gone away.
Or you can drive through it. You can slow down a little bit, or you can keep it consistent. Like you said, slow down. 59, it doesn't do it. It does it at 61 through 63, but goes away at 64. And those are things you definitely don't want to ignore.
Well, so the other vibration that's common, driveline vibrations from things like U-joints or axle shafts. In a front-wheel drive car, there's an axle shaft that goes from the right side of the transmission to the right tire, essentially, and one that goes from the left side of the transmission to the left tire or wheel. And those can get, I think we were talking about Audis before the show, vibrations at 71, 72 miles an hour. The point is, if you have a vibration, don't ignore it. At least find out what it is and how serious it is. In the case of this vibration on this, I believe it was a Dodge Dakota where the transfer case had come apart. They think, well, we're in the shop on a regular basis, and no one's ever said anything about this piece. Well, it's actually, if you're not looking, you may not see it.
Well, and you may not feel. We can't always get out and test drive the car at 70 miles an hour somewhere where you're going to feel that. And I guess the point we're making is, don't just accept. You kind of try and keep that new car feeling in your mind all the time, and it's these cars slowly degrade over time. And I make the analogy like your running shoes or your mattress or whatever. You get in it and it feels great, but after 10 years or 7 years or 50 or 80,000 miles, it still feels pretty good. And you don't realize how bad it was until you go put a new pair of running shoes on. Or not that I run, but or get a new Lazy Boy, whatever analogy you want to use. And then you think to yourself, holy mackerel, how did
I ever live like that?
Yeah.
Scott, you got any vibrations in your truck? Chevy 2500?
Just when it runs because it's a diesel. So yeah, but no, I don't. I'm kind of a tire Nazi, so I have always had good tires on. I get Michelin LTX2s.
Tire Nazi, I like it.
Yeah, dude, because I've had to change a blown out tire on a toy hauler on I-8, and that's no bueno.
Not a good deal. Well, the other vibration that you might feel is from engine mounts. Engine mounts going bad. We get a lot of calls on the show when my car's at idle, and I pull it into gear, it starts to vibrate. Is there something wrong with my transmission? No, There's nothing wrong with your transmission.
Or I need a tune. Hey, I need a tune-up. That would be the story. I mean, that was common in the 80s, 90s. People would come in and say, I need a tune-up. No, your car runs fantastic. There's absolutely nothing wrong. There's nothing to tune. The engine mounts are worn out. Maybe they're sagging.
Grounded out. And the grounded out is where, the engine and the frame are separated by this chunk of rubber called a mount. And a lot of times they're liquid-filled anymore, and they're electronic or they're vacuum-operated. But when it's 3 inches worth of rubber, after it's been there for 5 years, 10 years, it may be 1 inch of rubber, and now the engine and frame are real close together at some point, and they contact. So you get a real bad vibration or a grounded mount.
Well, and we've talked about mounts a lot. Now, I hear the technicians out there listening. There's not a 3-inch chunk of rubber. I mean, that was just to paint a picture to prove a point. Let's just say there's a 3-inch piece, and it's slowly, again, that rubber is it's got arguably 800 pounds, I don't know, whatever the number is, resting on it or force on it when you accelerate and when you're driving, and that's just slowly pushing down. That goes away, just like the sole of your shoe. It just and then all of a sudden it's 3/4 of an inch, three compacted into 3/4. Now it's hardened, and there's nothing to dampen the vibrations.
How thick is your mattress? How long have you had it?
It's thick. Don't go there, Dave.
Well, motor mounts are one of the things that people ignore, don't know about. But in a front-wheel drive car, it's not abnormal to need new motor mounts at 70, 80, 90,000 miles. We've talked about mounts, and we can do a whole show just based on mounts. But as they deteriorate over time, you don't really notice it. But as a technician, I get in a car, and I road test a car with a customer yesterday, and I jumped in it, and the first thing I did was start it up, and as soon as I pull in reverse, I knew there was a bad mount. I mean, instantly. And I'm like, do you feel that? He's like, feel what? Well, I feel that.
That's my point about the...
No, I don't feel it.
I've just been driving the car for 70,000. Same thing with my mom's Acura. I jump in it to go drive. I'm like, Mother. She's like, what? I go, don't you feel that? You step on the brake or step on the gas, and you can feel it. Oh, thud, and it drops down when you decelerate or let off the gas or after it shifts. Like, I didn't notice.
It's almost a curse for a technician. Every family member's car I get in, they go, I'm not taking you anywhere because you always find that I have to spend money on something.
Well, we drive so many different cars every day, different kinds, different varieties, whatever, and you just notice it. Now, sometimes in my truck even, somebody else might look at my truck and go, didn't you notice that? No. I get used to it too. Right. Have your trade cars once in a while with a buddy and have them drive it, and they might discover all these things.
It's amazing what you've gotten used to. Up first this segment, let's go with Juan in Phoenix. It looks like a 2005 Ford F250. Go ahead, Juan. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Thank you. Good morning. Yes, I got this 2005 Ford F250 that the power steering box break off about a week ago. I replaced that, and then I started noticing that the power steering pump, it was whining a little bit, so I replaced that one too. But the new one, it is really hard to steer. Do you think I need to replace it with another one, or what should I do?
Juan, what happened to the steer box? It broke off, you said, or what?
Well, no. One of the bolts that assembled the gearbox cut off and started losing all the fluid. So I ran the truck for a little while until I get to a safe place, and I basically lose all the oil. So the pump ran with no oil for a little while.
How long has it been since you've put the power steering pump on there?
A week.
A week. Well, I guess the first thing, I don't know if you need to replace it. That's one of those things where we'd have to hear it. I would be looking in the power steering reservoir to see if the fluid looks bubbly. Make sure that you've got your lines tight, especially your return line, and maybe that pump might be noisy. I mean, it could just be a bad pump.
Well, right now it's hard. It's not actuating very well. So,
but that could still be the gearbox. So,
right.
You've got to do a pressure test of the power steering pump to see if it's producing the appropriate amount of pressure. But secondly, if the first one was whining, that could just be that there was air in the system. Maybe you didn't use a real high-quality power steering fluid, the other fluid, and it very well could have been damaged. If that power steering gearbox broke and caused a rapid loss of fluid, you could have just burned up the pump. And now this time you just simply got a bad one. So I'd maybe lean towards putting another, trading out the pump.
Right. Make sure everything's copacetic, and as long as it isn't, we do have a pump problem.
And then use a good fluid. Make sure that you replace the return line. Make sure the clamps are nice and tight. And start it up and just let it idle. Don't get in there cranking the wheel back and forth, and just let the hydraulic fluid or the power steering fluid run through there, burp itself, if you will. And hopefully that would help.
Well, thanks for the call, Juan. We're going to go with Steve in Phoenix on a 2007 Honda Pilot. Go ahead, Steve. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Yeah, I'm wondering about, I'm looking at buying a Pilot that's got 90,000 miles on it, and it's never had a transmission service. They said something about it being sealed.
They're certainly not sealed. I think that's probably the biggest misnomer out there in the industry is sealed transmissions. But a Honda Pilot absolutely needs to be serviced. And on Hondas, I'm very aggressive on service, so it should literally be done every year. And they're simple to service.
You think?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I mean, they got a drain plug on them, at least a traditional for drain 3-4 quarts out of it, add 3 or 4 more quarts to it. Definitely a good idea.
Yeah, they don't have a very. I guess you're saying that because they don't have a very high fluid capacity. Because that's not one that you would waste a lot of money flushing the transmission. No sense in pumping a lot of fluid through that, right?
Well, it wouldn't hurt to flush it. I wouldn't use that word, but to exchange out all the fluid, if you go every 2 years. But I really think it's a good idea to be changing it regularly. So Honda had a lot of issues on transmissions as far as in the old days, a Honda was a compact car and it had 4 cylinders. Nowadays, you got these 3.5 liters that run like scolded dogs, and the transmission technology hasn't changed a ton.
You would definitely do the exchange though on this one with 90,000 miles.
On this one with 90,000 miles, yeah. So some people are afraid to service a transmission that has not been serviced because they think it might cause it to go out. But on this Honda, absolutely service.
Not true. The other thing, couple points there, Steve. You definitely want to take that car into a shop and do what we call a pre-purchase inspection. It's worth investing $50 or $100 with a shop, and go have them go over that car from the bumper to bumper. No
charge
pun.
$49.
Just stem to stern, whatever you want to say. Pull the wheels, check the brakes, check the battery, check the charging system. Go in the trunk and look and see if all the spare tire parts are there. Has it been used? Has the spare tire been used a lot? Not that it really matters if it's been used. That just means somebody had a flat at one time. Peel back the side panels and see if there's evidence that this thing's been clobbered in an accident.
People like to buy cars sight unseen, and I just really want to talk them out of it. And when they're there looking at the car, and they say, "Oh, we've already done our comprehensive vehicle inspection." Okay, you've done it, and that's great. But now I'm going to do it. I'm going to take it to my mechanic and have it done.
Well, and the other thing is, Hondas are such good cars. I mean, they really are great cars. And you can abuse them and very easily revive them. Not that they even need to be revived, but do all the services that have been skipped. Because if they've never serviced the transmission at 90,000 miles, it makes me wonder about the shop that they were going to. That what else did they not do?
Hey, Steve, the other point there too is the timing belt. That's not a timing belt car.
That's a chain on that one.
It's a chain. Okay, don't worry about the timing belt.
The other thing on the Honda Pilots are the all-wheel drive Hondas. They've got the what's called dual pump fluid, the rear differential.
Yep.
They need to be changed. That's a 15,000-mile service on that car, and you'll get hopping. You're making a turn in a parking lot or a U-turn, and it feels like it's binding or skipping, and that fluid is important to be changed.
Let's go with, looks like, Herb in Phoenix on a 2004 Buick Regal. Go ahead, Herb. You're on Bumper to Bumper.
Yeah, good morning. I went in for a quickie oil change, and when I left, the guy told me that my front wheels are getting loose. Is there anything serious in this, or is this just come on?
He said loose. Was he referring to anything in particular, like the hub bearing maybe starting to get some looseness to it? Or?
Yeah, he was mentioning that you may have to get new bearings or put on there, or whatever it would take to get it done.
Herb, were you in I'll say the term real shop, or were you in a drive-through oil service kind of place?
Yeah, one of those.
A drive-through oil service?
It was a shop, but it's you drop it off and you wait a few minutes and then they change the oil for you.
Is this your regular place where you go for all your maintenance and car care concerns?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
I was just getting it done quick.
Well, I would bet that. I mean, if they notice something, that's probably why they told you about it. But we always suggest that, stick with your one place. If you've got a shop that you normally use and that you're comfortable with, let them do all your maintenance. So since you didn't go back to that shop, I would go back to them and have them take a look. It sounds like what they're probably talking about is the wheel hub bearing on the front is loose. And that's something.
We didn't ask him how many miles was on that, but it's certainly, you got to take it to a shop, not so much just a quick service type shop, but you're going to have to get a relationship with the shop, bumpertobumperradio.com, if you don't already have one. And once in a while, it may be okay to slip in and get an oil change at the car wash.
On Friday at 4 o'clock.
On Friday at 4 o'clock when you got to head
out of town on a cross-country trip to Canada.
But in general, it's not so much just the oil change that's happening and the maintenance that needs to be done there, but it's the technician seeing the rest of the car. And there's in an auto shop, there's a lube guy that maybe has 6 months worth of experience, and then next to him in the bay over, there could be a full-blown ASC master certified technician that's got 25 years worth of experience. So who's looking at your car? And to be quite honest, you don't find the guy with 25 years experience working in the lube shop. I could be wrong on that, you think?
No, not likely.
No.
I mean, but the thing is, and that's something simple. That's part of kind of an oil service. I like to say we're going to look over the car. We're going to set the tire pressures. We're going to grab the wheel. Maybe they noticed a little bit of tire wear or something. So that's an easy check. I mean, that's not like somebody went on this venture looking for something on your car. You're going to grab the top of the wheel and the bottom of the wheel, or tire, whatever, with the tire installed. And if you can move that top to bottom in and out a little bit, that's play in the wheel there. And it's very well, it wouldn't be something that's uncommon. But go back to your regular guys.
A quarter of an inch would be normal. I mean,
nothing is normal.
Nothing would be normal, right?
Nothing. They're not getting loose. I mean, they're either loose or they're not loose.
Well, but I mean, the thing moves a half an inch, it's going to fall off on the next street.
Well, yeah. There's the degree of looseness, I guess. But once it has play in it, it's just not good. And then you need to work it into your budget or your schedule and get it handled.
Well, thanks for the call, Herb. We're going to go with Dan in Mesa on a 2006 Chevrolet Colorado. Go ahead, Dan. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Yes, thank you very much for taking my call. I just bought this Colorado here about 2 weeks ago, and it runs fine, runs great. Got plenty to get up and go, but you're talking about vibration, so I thought I'd give you a call. I noticed that I'm on the freeway doing about 55, 60, and I get a vibration in the seatbelt, the driver's seatbelt. It acts like it's vibrating, and I feel it. And if I slow down or speed up, it goes away. But it's just the seatbelt itself, like it's vibrating, like it's pulling, back and forth real fast, and I have no idea what's causing it.
That's just the part that's connected right down to the frame,
floorboard,
to the chassis, and it's
moving back.
It's the messenger.
Forth. I'm feeling like, I don't know, how many miles is on that Colorado?
89,000.
89,000 miles. Well, I'm thinking, I don't know if it was a driveline type vibration, like a universal joint, that type of thing. Sometimes I see those. You can drive through them, or you can manipulate them just based on how much your foot is into the gas. So you add a little throttle, pull a little throttle away, add a little throttle, kind of on and off the gas to see if it changes much. But when I think of, I'm feeling it in the seat, I'm thinking of tires toward the back or, drive shaft type. On a Colorado, it's fairly young. I don't think it would be needing U-joints, but you never know.
No, yeah. I mean, that's one of those things where when you're in for your next service, we always need tire rotations and balances. And I think that's one thing that's overlooked by a lot of people. They'll rotate the tires, but then not balance them. So it doesn't cost much, and it wouldn't be wasted money to have someone in next time you're in your regular shop, have a service done, do the oil change. If you haven't had the tires rotated and balanced in a while, have them rotate and balance the tires and take a look. If they don't see anything obvious, maybe it's not worth spending a lot of time. If the problem is solved, then great. If it's not, our point of the show earlier is don't ignore it.
Don't ignore it. Don't let it go. So thanks for the call, Dan. We're going to go with Henry in Queen Creek on a 2003 Audi A4. Go ahead, Henry. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good.
Hey, I got my Audi, and I bought it at a dealer there in Mesa. And about 3 weeks after I bought it, I had a check engine light come on, and it was a coolant temperature sensor circuit high. And I took it back, and they sent me to a shop down that they go to. And they said they fixed it, and about 3 weeks later, the light came back on. And I took it to another shop here in Queen Creek, and they told me, oh, it's just a sensor, don't worry about it. So I kind of left it how it was. Well, about a week after that, I tried to turn my car on, and it almost was like I wasn't getting any fuel. Is this part of the sensor that I need to get checked out, or do you guys think I'm having a fuel pump issue?
Well, no, I think what you first need to do, there's probably nothing wrong with the fuel pump. I started to convulse a little bit when I heard the check engine light on an Audi because we had a huge issue with one in our shop that we finally handled. But a coolant sensor failure on that Volkswagen and Audi family of cars is not uncommon at all. That coolant temperature sensor does a lot of things. It's going to first of all, it's going to tell the computer what the temperature of the engine coolant is. So when it's cold, the computer needs to know it's going to adjust the fuel differently than it would if it were hot. You know, we start the car in the middle of the summer here versus the middle of the winter in Flagstaff, it's going to adjust fuel delivery accordingly. It's also going to take that temperature and let the computer know so the computer can turn on the fans when it wants to see the cooling fans come on. And they had a lot of problems with those, and I can't remember off the top of my head. I got corrected last time, but it's easy to, it's a visual test. The first thing is if it's a green sensor, I think it was, it's bad. It's been updated. You need to put a black one in, or vice versa. So you could go to a parts store if you're a mechanically inclined person and ask them and just do the visual test yourself. Say, let me see the new one. There's probably a footnote that tells you the color that it's supposed to be. But they're in a plastic housing. They're easy to replace, but they're also easy to really mess up. So that would be the first thing, but don't ignore it.
I keyed on something that Henry said. The shop said, "Don't worry about it." And boy, that makes my blood boil. Don't worry about it. And I make up a number on the show all the time that check engine light can come on for 250 different reasons. I don't know, maybe it's 300. I don't know what the number is, but it comes on for a lot of different reasons, and it doesn't discriminate between coolant temp sensor and engine is overheating and whatever. There's a lot of different reasons it comes on, and you've lost your warning system if the light is just on. You know, so you may feel like, hey, I know why it's on, but you don't know why else it could be coming on. So a lot of times, I don't know if it's less experienced technicians that say that stuff a lot of times.
Don't worry about it until it's out of warranty. Sorry, Scott, but go ahead.
No, I think that, because the last year, since the little turnover we've had, I brought in a certified Volkswagen Audi guy, and it's made a world of difference because the cars are just different than a Honda, than a Toyota, than a Buick. They're just different. And unless you have somebody that has experience that knows these things, I mean, it's amazing.
I don't know, Matt, would you agree? You guys do a ton of Honda work. Volkswagen and Audi work.
Well, yeah, I didn't realize that we're actually about 65% imports at my shop, and I wouldn't have known it until I ran a report, but we do a lot of Volkswagen and Audi, and we had an 01 A4. We didn't have the car for 2 months, but it's been a 2-month process, and people have done the timing belt on it, but you know what? They didn't have the right tool to line the timing belt up, so they lined up the new timing belt where the old timing belt was already stretched and worn to, because there are not any marks in that car. You've got to have special tools. We fixed a number of different things on this car for a check engine light problem, for a misfire. It had bad spark plugs. That didn't fix it, but they were bad. The timing belt was off the equivalent of 2.5 teeth.
You found a bunch of vacuum leaks, if I remember right.
We fixed vacuum leaks. We found corroded wires that were bare in the wiring harness. We repaired those. Ultimately, the car had a bad computer. We sent the computer out to a place that can repair them. They couldn't repair this one. Luckily, we found one for this, A4 wagon, Quattro wagon, twin turbo, 2.7 liter. But you can't ignore it. And this stuff is not simple. And like you said, Scott, you've got to have someone like we do and you do now that has the right tools and the equipment to service these the right way.
Absolutely. I wouldn't have bought our Q7 had we had him, because this thing scared me.
Well, I'm going to change gears a little bit from an email from Janine. She's got a 2003 Honda Accord, and her question was, I've been offered a fuel injection service from my lube shop for $89. They sold it to me like I had to have it. Is it worth it? Do I get that service? I told them no, and I want to know. I want to know from the guys. What do you think? $89 for a fuel system service?
Well, the answer is yes. The answer is no. I've been to places that do car washes and oil change, and I've watched the salesman go, "Oh, you need an oil change today. Oh, do you want the transmission service? We can do a fuel injection cleaning. Would you like the power steering flush?" And they're just offering all this stuff because some people would say, "Oh, okay,
yeah, sure."
So you do need it. Hondas are one of the cars that we see EGR valve passages plug up. They have carbon issues. And carbon is I always tell people it's not necessarily the fuel injector that we're cleaning. It's the fuel injector that's the delivery device or the delivery method to use the cleaner to remove the carbon buildup from the engine. So the answer is yes, they should be done on a fairly regular basis. You can buy cleaners that go in. I wrote a blog on KTAR.com about using the right fuel, top-tier fuels that will help prevent the carbon buildup. And then there's the price. $89 sounds a little cheap. I mean, it's you don't want the can of Cheese Whiz that the lube tech hooks up and the car runs for 15 minutes, and they call it a fuel injection cleaning service. Dave, quit pointing. But so it should be done, and if you're looking for a good quality shop that can do that for you, stick with your guy if you have a good regular shop like we told the gentleman with the Buick.
Well, up first this segment, we are going to go at 2013 Kia Sorento. I'm interested in that. We've got Kevin in Chandler. Go ahead, Kevin. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call today.
You're welcome. What can we help you with?
My wife and I leased the 2013 Kia Sorento in February. It has about 1,500 miles on it. It's a new vehicle. When we're on the interstate doing the speed limit, 55, 65, one of my little girls will roll down the back window. That's exactly what we get. We get a vacuum in the cab that almost sucks your eardrums out, so we have to roll the window back up.
That's why we lock our child's safety lock, because that thing is it's like concussion too. It's like
exactly.
There's nothing wrong with the car. It's just however the aerodynamics and the design and the wind going over.
The air's being pushed in. It has no way to get out. So if you crack another window on the other side, it'll go away.
I just wanted to make sure a tire wasn't out of balance or
no,
something like that.
The window lock for the kids.
Yeah.
Good call.
Roll down all the windows and let the breeze go through our hair. Huh?
Yeah,
exactly.
Crack the sunroof, do whatever. It's just a pressure imbalance. And Scott, I'm going to take your pin away.
We're going to go for Rudy in Peoria. It looks like on a 1998 BMW. Go ahead, Rudy. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hey, Matt, Dave, and Scott. Question, when is enough when I do my own work in my car, 98, I got 310,000 miles on it now.
Nice.
Compression's fine, everything's working like it's supposed to, but I'm ready to change things, and they're not broken because they've been in for 310,000. When is enough for these parts? Example, ICV valve or idle control valve or the CCV valve or the crankcase valve. I mean, I even have the same fuel filter in here. You know, when is enough?
Well, fuel filter, anything that is a wear item like a fuel filter that doesn't wear out, but of course it gets plugged. Fuel filter, it's time. I would change it, assuming it's not in the tank filter and it's external. That needs to be changed. The BMWs, a lot of the German cars have a lot of plastic components, water pumps, thermostat housings, and the such. Some of those, if there's a reason or a related concern, maybe you have a upper radiator hose that's leaking, for example, that goes to that plastic thermostat housing.
Do the thermostat housing at the same time.
Yeah. Maybe take it in for the next service to a shop that is experienced in BMWs and just pay the, they're expensive to do an oil service on, but pay to have the service done and get their opinion.
See what sticks out to them if they see something. The other thing, too, is when you're doing voluntary repairs or replacement of stuff, I always ask the question, what do you use the car for? Is this a car you're driving back and forth between here and New York? You're going to treat it differently than a car that you drive around the valley. It's just a commuter to work, 5-10 miles a day back and forth. I'm going to treat that differently than something where the reliability is more important, where I'm out on the interstate a lot.
Absolutely. My dad has a Chevy Silverado pickup, 150,000 miles on it when we did it, but he goes out hunting. He's hours away from civilization on a dirt road. I'm like, we're replacing the fuel pump. It's going to go bad.
Right,
and it's not going to go bad when you're here in town. Right. It's going to go bad where you're going to have to walk for 7 hours.
There's some sort of law that makes that happen.
Yeah.
So when you're away from home, not close to anything. So
yeah, just so I guess there's no right or wrong answer. It's just your gut and some experience is what tells us.
We're going to sneak in one more. We've got Mike in Chandler on a 1999 F350 diesel. Go ahead, Mike. You are on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Hey.
I've got a weird problem with it. The truck's got about 300,000 miles on it, and it's a workhorse. I'm a landscape contractor, so I tow heavy loads with it frequently, and I drive about 200 miles a day with it. And it's got a hesitation and like a miss intermittently, and then if I turn the AC on, it starts knocking. I've had fuel filters put in, oil change done because they said dirty oil. It might create a problem with the pressure to the fuel injectors. Now they want to put new wiring. They tested it, they did a diagnostic test on it, and said that the wiring to the fuel injectors is corroded and bad, and they think that's what's causing the problem. But it's like $750 repair.
And
I'm wondering if they're on the right track.
And you said this is when the air that knocks with the air conditioner on?
Yeah, I get a little like ping or knock, but otherwise, just driving normal without the AC, I get hesitation, almost as if it was a car, a regular engine, like the timing was off.
Is that at idle or is that cruising down the road? You're going 45?
Cruising down the road. And if I'm towing a heavy load, I'm noticing, especially uphill, a lot less power.
Well, you didn't mention, who your shop is or whatnot, but I see that you are in Chandler. And one of the nice things about Chandler, one of the bumper-to-bumper shops that we have is Automotive Diagnostic Service. And they're on Chandler, Specialties, sorry. They're on Chandler Boulevard, and they've got a dyno there. They've got a technician named Mason that is just stellar with diesel problems.
Well, they're a Bosch diesel service center, too. But before going there, the point that we always make, too, talk to the shop that you've been working with. If you're comfortable with the things that they've been doing and they can demonstrate to you and you're comfortable that they have gone through a logical process of doing things that make sense. This was bad and we needed to do this. It could have been part of that issue. Make sure that all makes sense to you and it all spells out and lays out the right way. Now, if they're just guessing, well, that's different. If you all know it's a guess and you're part of that process too.
Well, my thing is, what's the empirical data that we have to condemn a part or to recommend something? And a lot of times guys will work a lot off guess because they don't want to do the due diligence to take the time to run the test, nor do people like to pay for the test, but sometimes it's worth paying for the testing. So